plug in and stay plugged in no matter what is going on in the world. Ernest Holmes wrote in The Science of Mind, "The thing, God, works for us by working through us and is us always. It cannot work for us in any other way. It can become power to us only when we recognize it as power." A Course in Miracles passage reads, "God is the love in which I forgive." God does not forgive because he is never condemned. The blameless cannot blame, and those who have accepted their innocence see nothing to forgive. Yet forgiveness is the means by which I will recognize my innocence. It is the reflection of God's love on earth. It will bring me near enough to heaven that the love of God can reach down to me and raise me up to God. Now let's place our faith in the good as we say the affirmation on the screen or on the front of your program together with enthusiasm. I use my creative power, which is sourced in the all power of God, for the highest good. Through faith in the good, I simply plug in, reclaiming innocence, contagious enthusiasm, and a grateful heart.
Well, thank you, Marianne. Good job, Dan. That's a nice one. All right. So, which tools would we rather use? Those of you who use tools at home, would you rather use a handsaw or a power saw? Would you rather use a regular screwdriver or an electric screwdriver? I guess it depends on what you're working on. But the whole point is that we also operate on this same principle. That we can use human power, which comes from an idea of separation, I have to do it myself, or we can come from a higher place and plug in to the ultimate source of all that is, the presence of the divine. And we have a choice. And I'm just knowing that in this this time of what's going on in so many people's lives, in our country in particular, and I know it's having its rippling effect across the world, that this is the time for us to really plug in on a regular basis and remain plugged in to this ultimate power and use it for the highest good. And I love the idea of the highest good and keeping our eye on that. You know, Emma Curtis Hopkins, a great teacher of New Thought, a brilliant woman who inspired Ernest Holmes and the Fillmores and many other New Thought people way back in the 1800s when women were not necessarily involved in the ministry, and yet she had a huge school in Chicago and trained, I forget what it was, 50,000 students in the realm of New Thought, and graduated many of the earlier New Thought ministers. And this is what she said about this thing called power. She said, "We have unlimited power. If we do not use that power, it does not alter the fact that it is our inheritance. We inherit it by divine birthright because of who we are." So this month, my focus is on how do we plug into this all-powerful source, and how do we stay there, remain there, so that we can show up as our very best selves. The first power tool that I talked about last week, was faith rightly placed. And my question to you last week was, have you ever said, "I wish I had more faith"? Anybody go there? I wish I had more faith. The truth is, That's an untrue statement or an untrue concept. The truth is, everybody is born with the full measure of every bit of faith you could ever need or want. In fact, it's already there within you. The question is where do you place it? Do you place it? And fear is misplaced faith. Did you know that? When we are directing our attention towards something bad is going to happen, when we go that way, we're directing that inborn, inherent faith in a direction that does not serve. And so the beauty of it is we have power of choice. So we have the power to shift our thinking away from something bad's going to happen to everything's working together for greater good. So you'll see how that just continues to build in what I'm talking about today, which is talking a little bit more about this concept called innocence that was so beautifully addressed in that Course in A Course in Miracles quote that Marianne just read. Because it's in knowing and owning this innocence, this inherent innocence, goodness, purity, that we then, when we own it in ourselves, then we can hold it and see it and know it in others. And because everything begins in thought, in the world of thought, that's the world of cause, we can literally call it forth in ourselves and in others. So this is a really different way of being for many of us, and the way that really the way human consciousness works, which is there's a lot of blaming and pointing fingers and condemnation and judgment and that kind of thing, and we are being called to rise above that and instead be a beneficial presence and instead be a unifying presence instead of a divisive presence. So, again, Ernest Holmes reminds us that this power works through us, this divine power works through us, as us, and is us, and that it simply requires that we recognize it, that we just recognize it. And then Emma Curtis Hopkins takes it again a little step further and reminds us that we don't want to go into God has power or we have power. It's much more powerful to say God is power, is the energy of power. We are the energy of power. Everything about us, the way we direct our minds, the words that come out of our mouths, the actions that we take, are all power in expression, universal power. And therefore, we can use it for the good. And it's important to stay conscious of how we're using it in all moments. And because God is this power, this good, this energy of good, this energy of love, is love itself, we can see how logically it follows that God does not condemn. Because of the presence that it is, absolute innocence, purity, and good. And therefore, that is the energy that resides within us. All we need to do is recognize it and begin coming from that place of innocence. So what happens then is, okay, we're birthed into this human experience. And then we begin to, as small children, watch how other people are functioning in the world. And we notice that there's a lot of finger pointing. This is wrong, that's wrong. A lot of things about wrongness. There's things wrong with the world, there's things wrong with people, there's things wrong with me. And this wrongness then produces this idea of duality, this idea of something wrong. And of course, when we believe something's wrong, we experience it that way, and we make choices that are maybe not for the highest and best. So again, let's not misuse this faith to focus on wrongness, but simply to be willing to let go of the guilt, the resentment, the condemnation, and turn to this tool that we call forgiveness. Forgiveness is simply, this is how radical forgiveness works that we teach here. Yes, you go ahead and you tell the story. You tell the victim story. You get it out of your system. And many of us have done that this last week. But then it's important, and then we want to feel the feelings. Feel the feelings. What we're doing is we're letting all of this stuff come up that needs to be healed. And we realize we're in the process of releasing. Then what happens in the process of releasing the feelings and being able to see our story, we can reframe it from a higher perspective. And in the reframing is when we find peace and love, and we become a beneficial presence on the planet in a way that we never have before. So forgiveness then is letting go of the story of wrongness, that something wrong's happening, something's bad is happening, because truly everything's designed to support the evolution of human consciousness, that Baha'i thing that talked about how we continue to evolve. Even the really challenging times are all about helping us to wake up, open our hearts. How many of us have become complacent over the years about our own spiritual growth? How many of us have been complacent about reaching out and connecting with people in love? How many of us have been complacent and allowed our minds to go to condemnation and judgment and fear? And so this is an opportunity now for us to do some course correcting internally. Many of us have been in the process of that already, I know, in this community. But make that additional course correction and begin to be vigilant about what's happening in our thought world, what's happening within us. So what I'd like to do right now is have everybody close your eyes. And let's connect. Let's drop down into your heart. Begin to breathe. And let's connect with the omniscience, which means the all-knowing, omnipresence, all-present, omnipotence, all-powerful energy of love. Breathe it in. And then you're welcome to sense it in the room. And open your eyes and look around, and everywhere your eyes land, look for the energy of love. Look for the energy of good. Look in the eyes of somebody else and see the innocence that's there. And notice what you're seeing is your own innocence. Take a moment, just quietly. Innocence. Everywhere you look, the energy of love and beauty and innocence and goodness. And repeat after me. This all power,
This all power,
this all knowledge,
this all knowledge,
this all presence,
this all presence,
this all love,
this all love,
pure innocence,
pure innocence,
lives everywhere,
lives everywhere,
including me.
including me.
Feel that. Because that's our ticket to freedom, is owning that energy of innocence. You know, every one of us have been doing the very best that we can in life. The inherent innocence is there. The next word I want to talk about is this word called entrust, because it is so key to staying plugged in to this one life, this one energy source of the divine. And so think about how many things and people that we entrust our lives to every day without even thinking about it. We entrust ourselves to the food industry to keep our food safe. We entrust our health to health practitioners and people in the health industries. We entrust our money to banks. We entrust our safety to all of those in the highway department, the government, the police, and so on. We entrust our lives to airline workers and pilots every time we get on a plane. We entrust ourselves to the outer world of humanity without even thinking about it. And yet, how often do we truly entrust ourselves to spirit, to the one life, the source from which all of this comes? According to animal behavioralists, dogs are entrusting themselves to us every time they roll over on their backs and bare their tummies and wag their tails. They're basically saying to us, I love you and I trust you enough to bare my throat and all of my vital organs. I mean, think about how powerful that is. Incredible trust, no fear. So the question is, do we entrust ourselves in that way to God, to the one source? When I was thinking about this, I was reminded of something that I heard one of our New Thought leaders say, which I thought was so powerful, is whenever you're feeling like things are just so bad you can't handle it, lie down on the floor, on your back, spread your arms out, and say, I surrender. And I was thinking, that's what this is, right? I surrender. So just put your arms out, imagine yourselves doing that, and just say, I surrender. I entrust my life to you, Spirit. And breathe it in. There's a story that is often told in the Unity movement about Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, who were co-founders of the Unity movement and also opened the publishing house for their publication called The Daily Word. So in the early days, they were really struggling financially. They were having a very hard time. And one day they were having a staff meeting, and there were a lot of concerns that were being expressed by the staff about, wow, just fear that they might have to close the church and that they almost might have to close the publishing house, even though they just barely gotten started. And a staff member made the declaration, we need to pray that the money holds out. So listen to that. And Myrtle, in her deep wisdom, said, no, we need to pray that our faith holds out. Think about that. The staff person was entrusting him or herself to the outer world of money. Myrtle was entrusting herself to the inner world of spirit, which is the place of real substance. Jack Boland put it this way, the same concept, and he was fairly contemporary. He left the earth, I don't know, in the early 2000s. But he said, my part is to believe, God's part is to provide all that's needed. My part is to believe, God's part is to provide all that's needed. And that can be guidance on what is ours to do. I mean, that is. I mean, it's the whole thing. But it's an understanding of what the source is. Do you see that? It's the understanding of where the source is, where the source of inspiration is, where the source of all that appears on this planet is. So, as many of you know, not only the Unity movement and all of its churches and centers, but also the publishing house are thriving and doing very well in this day and age. because of this power of knowing the deeper, higher truth. And of course, the master teacher Jesus was very good at this. He embodied this principle so beautifully when he said to the father of the epileptic boy, "Everything is possible to him who believes." Everything is possible to him who believes. And the father, who had gone to the disciples first and had not gotten any results, said to him, "I do believe." And then he hesitated and he said, "Help me overcome my unbelief," because of what had just happened. So after Jesus healed the boy, the disciples came rushing to him and talking to him privately and said, "Why couldn't we do that?" So listen to the reply from Jesus. He said, "This kind of healing can occur only by fasting and prayer." So when we look at the whole passage, we don't see anywhere where Jesus is depriving himself of food, that kind of fasting. What he is talking about is fasting from thoughts that create unbelief. Fasting from thinking that everything is falling apart, that the world is, that terrible things are happening, and instead returning to that truth that everything's working together for good, and I'm a part of that unfoldment. I have a part to play in the unfoldment of the highest good. And prayer, what is prayer all about? Prayer is about lining ourselves up with this higher truth, that there is only one, that we are living, moving, and having our being in that one, and that we are therefore everything that that presence is, all the love, all the peace, all the joy. And when we tune into that, we begin to come from a different energy, a different place. Fasting and prayer. Fasting from negative thinking, unhealthy thinking, and prayer, unifying with that higher truth. So how can we apply that to things that are going on in our country and in our world now? It's a direct application. It means that rather than being caught up in all the conversation of gloom and doom, and I found myself going there, I'll be honest with you. Rather than getting caught up in that, being that presence that helps other people see a higher perspective. Because remember, when we begin to see a higher perspective and we begin to verbalize that and live that, then what is happening? What is happening then is we begin to help shift human consciousness, one person at every time, every connection that we make. We begin to shift things and shift things and shift things. When really challenging times come, this is the greatest time to practice this. We can have the most impact. I really do believe that. And a beautiful note from the universe that many of us get through our email. It says, "When walls close in, when skies turn gray, and dreams seem like they're awfully far away, you're probably just forgetting that the same hands that created the sun, the moon, and the stars are still holding yours, eager to help. I simply adore you." Signed, the universe. So I have one more story. A young mother was struggling with a particular stubborn problem and prayed about it for several weeks, begging, pleading, and not getting any results. So then one day she went outside to get the paper, and her toddler was out there pulling at a rosebud and saying, basically, "Look, Mommy, I make the flower bloom," trying to pull it apart. And then she listened to herself as she was explaining to the toddler. She said, "As I heard myself explain to him that you can't make a flower bloom by pulling on it, something clicked. By begging, pleading, trying to force an answer, I have been pulling at God. I needed to take my hands off, wait patiently, and trust in the creative power of God to open up a right answer for me. When the answer did come, it was not what I expected, it was better. Join me in knowing that what happens is maybe not exactly what we expected. Maybe it's better. Maybe there's something better that's being birthed here that we don't see with our human eyes. So many of us joined James Twyman and maybe done our own prayers and prayed for the highest good in the election. And if it wasn't the outcome that we wanted, we have a chance to practice this idea of entrusting ourselves to the higher good. We do this through spiritual practice. We do this by being willing to. I put something in my greeting last week about how I often hear people saying that we. Sorry, I got distracted there for a second, and I lost my place completely. Because somebody just went out the door, came in, and went right back out. Let's see. Where was I? About entrusting ourselves to the universe, right? Entrusting ourselves to spirit and trusting that the highest good is unfolding. Remember, forgiveness offers this. Letting go of our story of wrongness offers this. Letting go of the judgment, all of it offers this and allows us to stay plugged in to this universal source. And also to ask ourselves, this is a great question. What is wanting to be birthed here? Not only in my consciousness, but in human consciousness. When things look the worst, that's one of the most powerful questions to ask and to listen for the answer. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 says, trust in God with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding. And a good way I'm putting that personally, I trust in God with all my heart instead of leaning on my limited understanding. I trust in God with all my heart instead of leaning on my limited understanding. And Michelle Obama, bless her heart, said, when they go low, we go high. When the world seems to be going low, the last thing we want to do is join that low energy by judging, complaining, condemning, resentment, guilt, fear, anger, hatred. Instead, it's important to go high. So let's go high now. Let's everybody stand, if you would, please. And raise your hands. We're standing in power position. This is power position. And repeat after me. I choose to go high.
I choose to go high.
And plug into the ultimate source.
And plug into the ultimate source.
Of good.
Of good.
I let go of fear.
I let go of fear.
I let go of doubt.
I let go of doubt.
I let go of anger.
I let go of anger.
I let go of condemnation.
I let go of condemnation.
I reclaim the innocence of myself.
I reclaim the innocence of myself.
I reclaim the innocence of others.
I reclaim the innocence of others.
As children of the Most High.
As children of the Most High.
I let go of pulling at God for an answer.
I let go of pulling at God for an answer.
And I trust.
And I trust.
I know everything is working together for the highest good.
I know everything is working together for the highest good.
With a clear mind and an open heart.
With a clear mind and an open heart.
I go forth to do what is mine to do.
I go forth to do what is mine to do.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Yes. Go ahead.
Hi again.